Hi, my name is Fraser Daniel, and today I'm going to be talking about some research I did for a paper for Introduction to the Literary Imagination. The research that I did focused on the theme of women's oppression within marriage, and it focused on 3 of the readings that we did throughout the class. The 3 readings I selected were Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper, which was written in 1892, also Chopin's The Story of an Hour, written in 1894, and finally Alice Munro's Boys and Girls, written in 1968. So as American history has progressed, we've seen some major strides in women's rights. It's been nearly 100 years since women gained the right to vote, and almost 45 years since Roe v. Wade was passed. Yet in that time, we've still seen a lot of problems with what's going on with women in America. Women still only make between 71 to 79 cents on the dollar for every dollar that a man makes, and in the country's nearly 242-year history, we haven't once had a woman as president of the United States. This has caused some major issues, and there's still a lot of protests going on today about these issues. So through this presentation, I want to argue that women's repression, specifically within marriage, has both historical and contemporary issues, and I will explain that the way these authors use their views to show how they view the issues and what can be done about them. So the first story I'm talking about is Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper. This story discusses an unnamed woman and her husband John, who's a physician. They've moved in together, and it's determined that the narrator has some sort of minor mental illness. The story focuses a lot on the way that the mental illness is treated. John tells his wife that the main thing that she should do is just relax, don't do anything that's mentally strenuous. This is contrasted with a lot of the ways that men were told to deal with their psychological issues. A lot of times they were told to get out the feelings, especially men coming back from war, to talk about their experiences. Men were given shock treatments, and they were given all kinds of different treatments, while women were mainly told, oh, this problem can be solved if you just stop using your brain, basically. And this caused a lot of issues. A writer from Johns Hopkins named Jane Threlkill, in her article Doctoring the Yellow Wallpaper, said that soldiers got shock treatment or talked about their traumatic experiences, while women were merely told that they needed to just sleep or relax. This caused a lot of issues, especially relating to this story specifically. Gilman herself was told by famous neurologist S. Weir Mitchell that she sent in a bunch of her psychological issues that she was having, and when she sent those in, he basically responded saying, why do you think I care about this? You know, you're just a woman, you just need to relax and calm down. And many years later, when he read this story, he actually felt really bad about that and realized that he needed to change what was going on. So it really showed that within marriage, John, as the narrator's physician and as his wife, was having a lot of trouble trying to keep her basically out of the way. He wanted to just keep her down, make sure that he had all the power, and he did that by using his power as a physician against his own wife. Moving on to the next story, Chopin's The Story of an Hour, written in 1894. This story focuses on a woman named Louise who has a heart condition and finds out that her husband has been killed in a train accident. While at first she's very sad and very sorrowful about what's happened, she does eventually, when she's alone up in her room, she thinks about it and decides that all of a sudden she feels this sense of freedom, this sense of relief, and she feels that she's not going to be dominated in her life by what her husband wants anymore. She can now do all the different things that she wanted to do. Emily Toth, a writer for the Woman's Review of Books, stated that by this time in the late 1890s that women had, quote, had it up to here with traditional marriage. She was talking about the way that women felt within their trapped marriages. As the story progresses, it turns out that Louise's husband had not been killed. He had actually been far away from the train accident when it occurred. And because of this, when she sees him, she actually has some sort of heart attack and dies. And they said that it was of, quote, the joy that kills. They believe that it was joy that killed her because she was so happy to see her husband again that her heart couldn't take it and it just gave out. When really, as readers, we know that it's because she's afraid of what life she's going to have to go back to that she thought that she had finally escaped from. And I think that really shows the way that she felt about her marriage. She felt trapped, she felt oppressed, and all she wanted was freedom. As Barbara Harlow of Feminist Studies says, she says, Mrs. Mallard, who is Louise in the story, she says, Mrs. Mallard has lived an hour of liberation and dreamed of an entire future of independence, which just helps to exemplify the point that I'm trying to make. Moving on from these two stories were written in the 1890s, and they really show the past perspective of what women were focused on. Moving to a more recent perspective, Boys and Girls was written by Alice Munro in the 1960s during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. This story focused on a young girl living on a fox farm with her mom, dad, and her brother Larry. And what happens in the story is she loves helping her father, she likes being outdoors and playing with her brother, and she sees her father doing the work and enjoys it very much. Then she sees her mother, who's always indoors and only really comes outside when she needs laundry or food to make for the family. And she sees it, and she doesn't want that to become her life. She sees her mother as miserable and says, I never want that to happen to me. As the story progresses, one of the things that happens is a horse is trying to escape, and she has the chance to shut the gate before it can escape, but she decides to let it go because she wants the horse to be free and not to be eaten. Her brother sees this and ends up telling her mother and father what she did, to which her father replies, no matter, she's only a girl. This really devastates her as she begins to realize that she is going to have to spend time with her mother, and she's probably going to end up just as her mother was, living indoors and being the homemaker of the family. This causes her a lot of issues, and she feels really bad about this. One of the places that this really came from was Monroe's childhood itself. Duke University's Amelia DeFalco wrote a story about Monroe when she was younger. She said that Monroe was her mother's primary caregiver. She was often kept home from school and missed a lot of the opportunities that other children had. Because of this, Monroe was raised in a way where she saw that women were the ones who had to take care of the people, while men were really the ones who got to do the work and got to be the big, money makers in society, where she wouldn't get the chance to. And I think the story really helps to show that, as a young child, she didn't see anything about, men and women and their gender norms that were being portrayed. She saw it as one of her parents was, the worker, and one of her parents was the homemaker. She didn't necessarily see it as men do this and women do this. And she just didn't want to end up like her mother. The writer Marlene Goldman talked about this. She said, children do not naturally evolve into gendered adults, such as following norms that have been portrayed by society. Instead, they learn from society and the world around them as they grow up, and they learn that this is the way that people are supposed to behave. So through all three of these stories, it's really obvious to see that these three women in their marriages, the unnamed narrator in The Yellow Wallpaper, as well as Louise in The Story of an Hour, and the mother of the main character in Boys and Girls, they're all suffering because their husbands are the ones who are seen as the powerful men in society. They're the ones who are seen as the one who get to make all the money while their wives just stay home and do the work, or they want to keep their wives down. And this causes a lot of issues, and it's still an issue in society today. There are still many women. Many women can't get in big business jobs as like CEOs or heads of companies because of societal norms that have been put in place. And I think it's been a very great issue, and I think that these three stories really help to exemplify the issue that's still ongoing in our society today. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.